Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lion, the Way, and the War, where we talk about Jesus, his church, and the spiritual battle that surrounds us all. My name is Craig Allison, and I'll be your host. All right, so I am so excited today to introduce our listeners to our guest. She is Summer Simmons, who serves as the Chief Development Officer for the Chattanooga Area Food Bank. Summer has served in a variety of mental health and child advocacy roles, with her most recent being the Regional Director for Camelot Care Centers. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work and a Master's in Human Service Counseling. She and her husband of 13 years have lived in Chattanooga for the past 13 years. Have 4 children and are members of the Dallas Bay Church. Summer, thanks for joining us on the show today. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got disclosure time. I know nothing about the food bank. I know it's a place where food gets distributed to people. So just kind of before we get into all of that, how did you get involved with the food bank?
I became involved with the food bank fairly recently in April of 2023. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I accepted a position there as their Chief Development Officer. So my role is to head our fundraising efforts, oversee our volunteer program, our community awareness and communications and marketing. And I also kind of serve in various roles of support just to help our agency do what it does and make sure that that folks have full bellies and food isn't a struggle for our families.
So what drew you to this work? It's just like reading through your bio here. You're basically, as far as your career has been kind of advocacy based, helping other people, social work degree. I did child protective services for the state of Tennessee years and years ago, so I worked pretty closely with social workers, so I understand that world and the types of stuff that goes on there. What drew you to that field?
Well, I always wanted to be in a career that I loved and felt passionate about, and serving in that role of child advocacy for as many years as I did. I think 15 years. Fresh out of college, my first job was with the Department of Children's Services as well. And there's a common theme amongst the families that are at risk for trauma, and that's lack of resources. So food is one of those basic needs that every child, person, senior, every person has the right to access to food, and I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I don't think most affluent people that middle class or whatever, being hungry just it's not part of our experience until you've been there and you've understood what it means to have that as the dominating thought. Where am I going to get my next meal?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, especially from a parent perspective. I have 4 children, and they may, tell me, "Hey, I'm starving." They really have no idea what it means to be hungry or food insecure. And I think a lot of people do not realize what that looks like or what that feels like, especially if you are caring for a parent or caring for a child or somebody who's dependent on you.
Yeah.
It's not something that somebody should have to carry the burden of with so many other burdens of the world.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that term here in a minute. You said food insecurity. I want to talk a little bit about, what does that actually mean? But before that, let's talk about the food bank a little bit, its impact on the community. What is the food bank? And speak like I am a person that doesn't really know anything about it other than I passed we talked a little bit before. It's the distribution center on Amnicola Highway. That's where all the food comes in, and then from there, I'm assuming it goes out to the different locations to be further. So just like high altitude approach, what is the food bank here in Chattanooga?
Sure. So our food bank, we actually serve 20 counties. We have 11 counties here in Tennessee, and then we have 9 counties in Northwest Georgia. We have over 250 hunger relief partners across those 20 counties that help us distribute the food. At our warehouse, that's where food is brought, that's where food is sorted. That is where our administrative piece happens as far as, grant writing and all the things that happen on an administrative end. We do not directly distribute the food at the Chattanooga Area Food Bank. We then rely on folks in the community to help us make sure that families have access to the food that we're able to provide.
Okay. So if I showed up over here to the Amnicola location and needed some food, I'm not at the right place. Is that right?
You're not. We're not going to let you leave there in a dire situation. We're going to try to figure out what we can do to put a Band-Aid on the situation, but then direct you to the right resource. Okay. So if, for example, if you came to our location, probably our closest distribution partner would be the area off Wilcox. It's Foxwood Food Center. That is where, a family could show up and receive full services from the food bank.
Okay, so can it be does it have to be like a specific food bank building that is there specifically for that, or could it be like a different type of organization that distributes food, like a church building, for instance?
Right, both. So there are many churches in our community that have food pantries. We also, you'll see like Saudi Daisy Food Bank, for example. So some of our distribution sites are hunger relief partners. There will be the terminology of food banks. Sometimes you'll see food pantry or hunger relief center. We also distribute food through means of mobile pantries, where the food bank will take trucks to various sites and locations where families are experiencing hunger and do distribution in that way. And we also partner with schools and colleges and many churches, as you mentioned. I think that our faith-based community takes up about 63% of our hunger relief partners. So we rely heavily on our area churches to help us get food out. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Yeah. You mentioned, colleges. We had just a brief conversation before. I think because I work with college students, that's our ministry here, and I think most people typically think, we don't associate hunger with college students because you're in college, you've got money, right? You're whatever, but you do serve college students who have food insecurities, right?
Certainly. I think that to make the assumption that just because you're in college means that you have resources, that's not really fair, simply because there's a lot of kids that are in school on a scholarship or on a grant opportunity, or maybe it's taking every ounce of resources they have to be there and paying the tuition to go to school, between books and other things that they need to be successful in school. Right. So the face of hunger is not typically what people imagine. We serve many working individuals, many people who are in school or trying to, improve their quality of life, or, most of the folks that we serve are not going to be reliant on the food bank for forever. They're in a certain circumstance or situation where they need help. Just yesterday we had a phone-a-thon on Giving Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And I think I spoke with like 7 different donors yesterday that said, I'm calling to make a gift of what I'm able to make because, at a certain point in my life, the food bank helped me.
Okay.
So those are the kind of stories that you hear that really kind of put a new perspective on what the food bank does.
So let's talk about food insecurity, that term. What does that actually mean?
Food insecurity is not knowing where your next meal is coming from.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have been without food for so long. You just don't know how or where you're going to get fed again, how you're going to secure food.
Right. There's other resources in Chattanooga that might provide like a warm meal or kind of an instant need of providing food. But we define food insecurity as not knowing where that next meal is coming from.
Okay, and that when we stop and just process what that actually means, that's for a first world country. Let's just take Chattanooga as the city, and a relatively affluent city, to think about that in terms of what that actually means, because we're talking about a primary basic need, oxygen, water, and food. And so that we have a portion of this population here, and I don't know, maybe what that number is, but we have however many that have food insecurity. You can't thrive. You can't do anything else until you fulfill those very basic needs, right? So for me to sit back and think about where I'm at right now, because thinking about where I'm going to get my next meal it just doesn't even enter my atmosphere, my consciousness, really. So to step back out of that and think about that there are people here that they don't know if they're going to eat or not. And it could be days before they eat, before they secure their next meal, because they just don't know where they're going to go. That's kind of horrific.
Right. And especially thinking about a household, when you have children. I mean, statistics show us that 1 out of every 6 families has experienced some type of food insecurity.
Is that nationwide, or is that here in Hamilton County? 1 out of 6.
That's nationwide.
Okay.
And so to think about that, to me, is really alarming. And how many of those families have children that can't fend for themselves. And so the work that we do, whether it be here in Chattanooga or anywhere in America, it's vital to a basic need in the community.
Yeah.
So
okay. I think about so I do mission trips with our college students. I grew up in West Africa, so I'm familiar with what hunger looks like. But those pictures in my mind are reserved for third world countries. And so this is, part of the reason why I'm glad to be sitting down and talking with you today, because a lot of people think, let me back up. A lot of people have the heart to help, to serve. And they think, in order to do that, I've got to get on a plane and fly to this third world country. It's right here in our backyard. And a lot of people don't realize that they can do so much help and so much good and fill a need that is absolutely essential to be filled. And they're missing it. They don't understand that we need that help here. They can serve here. They can contribute here. So how does that work? Okay, let's just say that I'm the person who has a heart. I want to help my community, and specifically hunger, food insecurity. That's kind of my thing. Okay, because I see the pictures on TV of the third world countries, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, someday maybe I'll get to go there and help in that need. All right, but then somebody comes along and says, hey, Chattanooga, we have a need right here for that. You can help. How what do I do, Summer? Where do I go? Who do I call? How do I get plugged in?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to back up a little, because I don't think that I touched on this earlier, I mentioned the Foxwood Food Center. All of our hunger relief partners outside of Foxwood are entities that function within their own neighborhoods. Foxwood is the only distribution site that the food bank actually does all the things for. Make sure that we have the volunteers there, make sure that we have the internal structure present so that we're able to distribute food, safely and securely and all of those good things. So with the food bank, we are heavy reliance we have heavy reliance on all of our volunteers, and we have two ways in which you can serve in that way. We have the Foxwood Food Center that I just referenced, and there our volunteers actually come in contact with the families that we're serving in Hamilton County, and they go through. It's kind of like a grocery store setup, and you walk through and you help our neighbors make their choices of the foods that they're choosing. You hear their stories. You may be put, in a task of stocking a shelf, or cleaning up a mess, or doing inventory for Foxwood. But it's kind of more of the people experience that a lot of volunteers are looking for. We also have a lot of opportunity at our warehouse, and that's where people want to get hands-on with the process, right? Okay. So they can come there and build boxes and build sack packs that are going to community schools. You can come label cans, or pack macaroni noodles that we're able to get at a very discounted rate, and we can buy more of because we package it ourselves. And so we rely on volunteers to do that for us. Okay. So we have many opportunities for folks to get involved with the food bank and volunteer with us hands-on. You can also volunteer at your local food banks in your neighborhood. I mentioned Saudi Daisy Food Bank earlier. They have 2 days a week that they distribute food, and it is a volunteer effort. There's not a paid staff member there. So it's folks in the community that show up and help make sure that hunger relief happens in that community.
So where's the best place for me to go? Like, if online and look and see, okay, where do I need to go? Would I do a Google search for Chattanooga Food Bank?
Sure. You can go to the Chattanooga Area Food Bank.org, and on there it'll say there's different tabs you can click on, and you can click on ACT, and it'll show you the various ways that you can volunteer. You can actually sign up there, put your email address in, and get reminders that, this is what you signed up to do. You can also go to where it says get help. And when you go there, you put a zip code in, and it shows you all the various distribution sites that we have with agency partners and things like that. So you can, if you're more interested in finding something in your neighborhood. Now, not all of our hunger relief partners need volunteers. A majority of them do, but there are certain pantries that kind of operate internally, within our churches and things like that. But certainly there's many community-wide opportunities, and anybody's welcome to reach out to me, and I can plug you into the right resource if you have a question about volunteering. Okay.
So you mentioned churches. Let's talk about that, because I think, and I jotted down a very few as I was looking at this, as far as, this intersection between church community and nonprofits to care for the hungry. So, I'm speaking now, those that are listening, I'm speaking to Christians, people who call themselves Christian, who are part of that Christian faith-based community. And I believe, my study of Scripture, it's hard to come away from that thinking that the church doesn't have a responsibility here to care for the hungry. So just very brief perusal here: Matthew 25, Isaiah 58, Ezekiel 18, Luke 3, Proverbs 22, John 2, 1 John, Romans 12, just to name a few. And I was I knew the Scriptures addressed the church's responsibility to feed the hungry, to take care of the poor, that type. So I knew it was in there. I did not realize how prolific it's in there. Mm-hmm. So if you are a listener and you are a member of a church, you need to understand that the church has a responsibility here. Jesus himself said, if you love me, you're going to feed me. And as his apostles, like, when were you hungry, Lord? When were you naked? When were you thirsty? And he tells them, he says, when you did this to the least of me, meaning those that had that need, when we fed them, when we clothed them, when we gave them something to drink, we were doing it to Jesus himself, because we're his children, right? So we have this intrinsic, I shouldn't say intrinsic, because some people aren't intrinsically motivated to do that. We have this command from Christ. It's in Scripture to help those that are in need, the needy. It's part of the way that we show the world that we are his disciples, right? So all of that to say that this partnership that you mentioned with churches, how does that work exactly with the food bank? Like, what are the steps for churches to become more involved in following Scripture's guidance on getting out there and helping to feed the community, to feed the hungry?
I think it really comes down to being aware of your community, and knowing what the needs are, and kind of always keeping your eyes open for that family who may be struggling, or that neighbor that something seems off and it looks like there's a need that's not met. When you're in the schools, seeing, what's the situation at home for some of the kiddos? Is there a need? Do we suspect that there's food insecurity happening at home? I think that in order to first be the hands, you have to be the eyes and the ears.
Yeah.
And so that awareness is key. And I think that when you are in those communities and you're seeing what the needs are, to not be afraid to speak up, or not be afraid to extend your hand or your thoughts, or ask the questions, and pointing those individuals to the right resources.
Okay, so I'm trying to think how to phrase this. So let's say that I see my child comes home and they said, little Johnny he never comes to school with lunch, and I ask him and I share my lunch with him, and he says that his mom and dad, they don't have any food. Mm-hmm. Okay, so boom, we've got a need. And I'm a church member, so I go to my church, and I say, hey, my son tells me about this family that's in need. They don't have food. And the church leadership says, oh, well, we have a pantry. They can come by on Monday, and we'll give them a package of food, okay? Mm-hmm. But that's a one-time deal, right? So is there our churches working outside of the purview? Like, does there need to be a better communication between the food bank and area churches, so we're not like recreating the wheel? Mm-hmm. Like, does one serve as a resource and one does not? I'm kind of confused on the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there is actually a lot of collaboration that happens between the food bank and our faith-based partners in our hunger relief efforts. If I was in that situation that you spoke of with the student, I would probably start with the school, and speak with the staff there. We work really closely with our schools too, so we have coordinators that are assigned to schools, and they're communicating with those principals, with those teachers, with that administrative staff to help link those families with resources.
Okay.
And there are actually many of our schools that have resources on site. Okay. And how those conversations get started, or how that's approached, is really up to the entity itself. So okay. That's more of the protocol of the school, or the protocol of how the church would like to have a conversation with that family on accessing the resources. Yeah. We certainly are able to guide someone that would like to learn how to, in a sensitive way, approach those conversations, mm-hmm. but there's not necessarily like a protocol or how you would what you would say when you respond to that. We would want you to point them in the right directions.
Okay, gotcha. I'm thinking too in terms of, churches are good at, let's say, doing a lot of different things, but they may not have the resources or the know-how or the expertise to properly address food insecurities. Okay, so they may need to channel whatever resources that they do have, mm-hmm. towards the food bank, or towards the organization that actually does that every day, right? That works in that. So that's kind of my point here is, churches getting involved and not feeling like they're the stopgap. They're the ones that provide the actual food for families, because let's be honest. Most churches are really busy, and they've got their stuff doing a lot of other things. So if they can plug into, let's say, a person or an entity or a group or an organization that actually does that.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to like connecting the resources. So, if someone came to you at a church and you weren't aware if there was a church pantry there or a food pantry there at your church, you go on our website and type in the zip code of where that family might live, and help that family identify what hunger relief activities are happening in their community or their area. So you would see there, like, okay, there's a mobile pantry distribution that happens on this day. Here is a church food pantry, and it operates on this day and this day. It would kind of spell out for you the different areas that you could utilize those resources. I don't think that you would have to say, oh, I want to begin a pantry or I want to meet that need internally if you don't have the infrastructure to do so. A lot of those establishments are already there. I think it's just being aware of what is available in the community and knowing how to plug those folks who are in need in.
Gotcha. So it's really about just understanding that the resources are there and how to connect those people to the right resource. So here at Central Church of Christ, we've done the food pantry before, and people would come every Monday. It's once a week. They would get some basic essentials. Basically, it was interesting because when we would go back outside the door, down the sidewalk, we would find discarded items that I guess had picked through and like I don't want this and I do want this and that kind of stuff, and it was sort of frustrating from that standpoint. So we backed off of that a little bit, and we did exactly what you were saying, is trying to point them in the right direction where food wouldn't be wasted, right? And so now we have these bags that we keep in the front of our worship area that people can go and put them in their car. They take them with them, and so if they see a person in need, they can literally just hand them this bag that has a meal in it, some basic essentials. Okay, so we're addressing a kind of like an emergency type of, here's one meal for you to take care of, your hunger right now, or to take this home to your family and whatever. But that doesn't really get into the root cause. And so I'm interested in talking about this because you had some anecdotal stuff where you said, a person had donated money because they had contacted you all and had helped them work through some of these food insecurity issues. So how does y'all's organization work to address the underlying reasons for food insecurities?
Yeah, absolutely. We're having conversations around that daily. Because like we said earlier, a family that's experiencing food insecurity, probably that's one of the many areas that they're struggling or they need help in, right? So we partner with a lot of other nonprofits to kind of, whether that be partnership that has a variety of resources that they can offer folks. We also partner with some of the mobile health clinics that will serve medical needs. We actually partnered with the American Heart Association recently, and they did cooking classes on site to help people, learn, well, what do I do with all these groceries that I bring home, and have some cooking classes to help them kind of learn that skill set.
Yeah.
Career resources, mental health resources. We also have an on-site SNAP coordinator at our Foxwood location.
Okay, what is SNAP?
SNAP is essentially like we used to call food stamps. You go through the application process, and then you're assessed to see, look at your income to see if you would be eligible for government assistance and grocery dollars.
Okay.
Yeah. If a family is experiencing food insecurity, at our Foxwood site, for example, you can only come every 30 days. And we've estimated that, a family of 3, they get enough groceries that would probably last them for 7 to 10 days if they took a trip to Foxwood. But, you can't come back for another 20 days if that did last you for 10. And so that's a lot of days of need.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that the other resources that are available, we can keep, maintain a streamlined approach to help connect them to those things.
Okay. All right. So it can be any. Let's say I've got a family that I know of, and I need to get them plugged into whatever resources. Okay. Is there a specific place that they would need to go as far as being able to be, I guess, screened for what their actual needs are? Like if I just took them to the Foxwood distribution center, where they are going to get, is that the place where they would also receive that type of thing, or do they need to go to like a different place?
Well, I mean, Foxwood's not going to be a one-stop shop for resources. Unfortunately, we are continuously trying to innovate and creatively figure out how we can provide more resources at one spot.
Okay.
But it's kind of a step-by-step process and starting from the ground up. But what we're able to do now is, so for example, if you brought a family to Foxwood Food Center, they would give some basic information. We try not to be too intrusive because we don't want to turn people away or people to feel intimidated or like you're going to get all up in their business. Yeah. We ask some basic questions that really just assess for what your needs are. So, how many folks live in your family, your house, how, what is your income? What do you have coming in? And then we would direct you to our on-site SNAP coordinator who will help you apply for those resources. We do have a resource wall where there are other agencies' information there and how to access those things, brochures that are available on site. And then our SNAP coordinator will try to help navigate and do some referrals out for other things that are needed.
Okay. So one of the things I've noticed, and just as we wind things down, I'm just going to shift and bring this back to my purview, my world, if you will. I've noticed, and this is a good thing, I've noticed that this current younger generation, so I'm talking about really post-millennials, but I think it started with really Generation X and then the subsequent generations after that. So, we're talking, everywhere from like late 30s all the way down to current college students. There's been this sort of shift in ideology where they're very much more servant-oriented. Obviously I'm coming from a faith-based background, so dealing with kids that go to church and do the Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night thing, the typical church, routine, right? And so for my generation, maybe your generation, we were much more inclined to just, go and sit in church and sing the songs and listen to the preacher and maybe make a donation or whatever and feel really good about ourselves and go back and live our life, right? Normal routine. The college students today, their spirituality is not based on that. They really want to put feet and arms to the whole thing, right? They want to be active and involved. They want to serve. They want to get out and do things that, are the fruits of where their heart's at, right? Okay. So how, as a campus minister, what would be the best way, if you can give me advice and say, Craig, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to tell your college students, because I know that they have a heart to serve and get out. Here's a great opportunity for them to practice their faith in actual, application.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you having food drives. I mean, we still take canned goods. We have a lot of organizations and groups, and they have some fun with it, right? Collecting food. And also coming and serving as a group. We have a lot of school age groups, college age groups, youth groups from churches that will come and serve together and volunteer together. We do a lot of that, so we would be happy to tell you more about that and get you signed up.
Okay,
we certainly don't turn anybody away that wants to, be the hands and feet and volunteer with us. So.
Okay, that's great. And there may be listeners out there that are thinking the same thing. I know that there's families that have made it a tradition after they open presents on Christmas morning to go out and work at serving food at the different places that actually serve meals on Christmas, hot meals or whatever. So there may be some real interest there. We're going to include in the description, and you're going to tell us again what the contact information is, but we're going to include in the description on our YouTube channel the links to the food bank and at least get people started in that direction. So Summer, share again what's the good contact information where we can get started with this stuff?
Chatfoodbank.org.
Okay.
We also have LinkedIn page. We have a Facebook page. We also have an Instagram. So if we're talking to the college community, I'm sure that they are all very familiar with those social media outlets. And also when you come over to volunteer, I'm happy to give you a tour, and we can, walk through the warehouse or walk through Foxwood and talk more about what we do and how we do it.
Okay.
Kind of seeing it visually is a different experience than hearing about it.
Yeah.
And you're always welcome to reach out to me. My email address is ssimmons@chatfoodbank.org. So you're welcome to email me directly, or go to our website.
And you're the administrative offices for the Chattanooga Food Bank. Is that the one on Amnicola, or are you guys located at a different?
Right. I'm at the warehouse. So all the action happens there. And that's where the warehouse volunteers show up as well.
Okay. So when I see trucks coming in and I see people unloading stuff, which I do from time to time, that's the warehouse where from there it's going to go to the different places that it needs to go to, right?
Right. Food's constantly coming in and food's constantly going out. So it's an active place for sure.
And so same place I would take donations, right? So if I have boxes of canned goods, that's the place to take it.
Yeah, that's the place to take it.
What's the address there?
Our address is 2009 Curtain Pole Road, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37406.
Okay, Curtain Pole Road.
Yes.
And that is off Amnicola.
That is.
Okay. Summer, thank you so much for being here today. I enjoyed sitting down and talking with you, getting a little bit more information about the Chattanooga Food Bank, the types of things you guys do, how you serve the community. It's to be commended. And so I wish you all the best, and maybe we'll get some college students over there to
bring
help out
a group
in some
over.
capacity.
I'll give you guys a tour. I'll be happy to.
That'd be great. Okay, folks, so we're going to wrap this up today. Again, if you are interested in sponsoring us, this show or any show, feel free to reach out and contact us. Like, share, subscribe to our channel. We're talking about stuff I think that the community needs to hear. So work to get the word out there, because you never know who you might impact. So our closing thoughts for today, I'm going to read a passage out of James chapter 2, verse 14 through 18. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. Until our next episode of The Lion, the Way, and the War, love one another, be kind to one another, and remember that the Creator of the universe loves you so much that He gave up His only Son for you. Have a blessed day.